what's up YouTube? So for people still playing the game, I kind of wanted to do this video for a while, and this is pretty much explaining why your loot goblin sucks, or why you're just not getting that much loot from your loot goblin. In my opinion, currently, for me, magic finding is probably around the same fun as I had last league, outside of the fact that my build kind of sucks without headhunter buffs, like how they were before. So if you're playing like attack-based kinetic blast, it feels really bad. However, I did find a magic find build finally that's actually able to be done on a budget without headhunter. That will be releasing probably tomorrow with a guide video. But basically, I do like the god touch gambling for some reason. Like, it's kind of fun because it's about trying to set up for the perfect god, and a lot of it is RNG with altars. But in the end, you could say there's RNG in trying to find apothecary in the past, and sometimes you go like 50 maps without seeing it. And this is even last league, unless you're abusing party quant. But for this league, if you drop something like this is pretty much like getting half an apothecary. And it's way more likely to happen, in my opinion, than to get an apothecary drop. At least for this league, getting an apothecary drop is near impossible. I have gotten probably like 3 or 4, 12 to 15 divine drop ones, and this is my highest one, so let's go see what happens. Juice mapping can look like, even though it's the last hope of what juice mapping can look like, even though it's not profitable. I can just lie and tell everyone that it is profitable, so at least that they still have something to look forward to, right? Because right now, like, if I had to be truthful, it's not profitable. They're straight up losing money every map, but at least, like, hey, at least you guys have something to look forward to, right? Right? Well, sometimes it's just ironic, right? Because I was pretty much going on about a rant about how juice mapping was not really profitable. I was pretty much losing money every single time I was putting in the map. Now, that's not really true. I was kind of trolling my chat, but as you can see here, I actually wrote a bunch of maps, and Deli Orbs right now, or for now, with Scarabs or Skittering Orbs, kind of sustain your money at the moment. But as you can see there, why did I actually get such a big loot explosion? And this is probably the biggest one I got. Now, something to note is that there was no currency duplication altars taken, but the map was around 300% quant. Now, most people do have no idea how God Touch works, and they don't even know what type of god drops what. And sometimes they're wondering, why don't you come call my Droughtbringer Ericali's Touch or Aberrath Touch and Brine King Touch? And I'm like, keep that god away from me. I don't want anything to do with it. But there are certain ways to make your God Touch have as much value as possible when you do find it outside of just calling in a Magic Find Color. So you can see here, this is someone who just did it for me. They called me in and I found 7 Alks, 4 Chaos Orbs, and 1 Regal Orb. And that's just kind of sad. But in the end, the Magic Find Color will always get you more loot in general, and we'll see why exactly this happens. So this is a comprehensive list of all of the gods, and we're going to go over them real fast. Empowering Minions, Magma Barrier, dropped items have maximum sockets. Temporal Bubbles, Soul Eater, dropped items are fully linked. So Arch Nemesis and how GGG actually designed the system, and I do think the system is okay in some sense, but probably not fully tested out well enough. And I do think the main problem of the league was definitely the removal of past league, Quant, and Rarity. So what this happens is, if you get a combination of Magma Barrier and Temporal Bubble, this is how you get loot combos where you get 6 socket items with 6 linked chests. So this is what happened at the beginning of the league for me. Multiple times I would get like 10 6 links, which also for 1 divine each. And that's because I got a combo of these 2 mods together. Now, next you have dropped items have all white sockets. We see this every now and then. Necromancer dropped quality items converted to 20 quality currency. That's how we get the whetstone explosions and armor scrap explosions. The dropped items are converted to utility flasks, and this is the main one that's the problem. You get a bunch of utility flasks on the ground. Corpse Detonator dropped items are converted to rings, and that's another one. Dropped items are converted to amulets, but these things will never really show up on the filter. And Entangler dropped items are converted to jewels, and dropped items are converted to gems. So a lot of these things that we probably don't even really notice because our filter kind of hides it. So it's up to Neversink who did it, or Filterblade. Now the big one over here is dropped items are duplicated. Corruptors, dropped items are corrupted. And this is the one that makes everything fractured. So dropped items are fractured is empowered elements. So if you think about it, if you get empowered elements and Droughtbringer together, then you get all your items are fractured flasks. Now, these are the big ones: Lunaris, Shikari, Solaris, Tukuhama, Aberrath, Aracali, Brian King, Innocence, and Katava. These are the gods as we know it, or the Pantheon gods. So Lunaris, Shikari, Solaris are the currency conversion ones. Now, these ones are important because you read it right here. It says dropped items are converted to currency based on rarity. So rarity is something we know show up. So what does this mean? So that means if you find a unique item, it'll be converted into a T1 currency. And we'll go over that in a little bit. So you can see here, dropped items are converted to scarabs based on rarity. So out of all of these God touched, the only good ones are Lunaris, Shikari, Solaris, and Innocence. And this one means that the rarity will have winged scarabs, technically. So if you see Tukuhama and Aberrath, that's kind of bad. Your rarity doesn't do anything, and you just get maps. And Aracali and Brian King, it doesn't do anything. It's not like if you have more rarity, you'll get better div cards. So Katava Touch is okay. So this is like where you get a bunch of uniques. So if you get like Katava Touched and Entangler, that will allow you to drop a bunch of unique jewels. So if you ever see a bunch of uniques on the ground, it's probably because you got Katava Touch and some sort of conversion for this. Now, what does this mean? So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 9 total gods and 4 are good. So that's around like half chance, 45% chance in order to get a good god every time you encounter one. And what's it called? The currency conversion ones are a lot better than scarabs just based on how much the average payout is. And yeah, that's pretty much the whole deal with how exactly the god conversion works. Now that we kind of understand exactly how the God Touch work and why Lunaris and Shikari, Solaris, and Innocence Touch are so important, the most important scarab that people don't really use and it's really underused is Winged Reliquary Scarab or Gilded Reliquary Scarab. And this is the most important scarab for getting huge divine explosions. And it's kind of common sense, right? Because when you find a good god, items are converted to scarabs or currency based on the rarity of the item. So if you have a white item on the ground, you're going to get something really bad. If you have a blue item or magic item on the ground, it's better. Rare item is going to be even better. But if you get a unique item, it will probably get converted into the highest tier of currency and the highest tier of scarab. So if you get Innocence Touch, you'll get winged scarabs in bulk. And if you get Solaris, Lunaris, or Shikari Touch, you will get either a Divine Orb or Exalted Orb or Annulment Orb. So if we actually look at the clip that we had right here, as I was losing money every map, but at least like, hey, at least you guys have something to look forward to, right? Yeah. But so you can see here, it dropped 24 Divines, it dropped 10 Exalted Orbs, or it actually dropped 22 Exalted Orbs and 13 Annuls. So this is like kind of a lucky scenario. I mean, theoretically, the Divine Orbs are the highest out of them all, if you take into account. But it could have gotten even more. So 22 Exalted Orbs, this could have all been Divine. So you could have theoretically gotten even 40 Divines here if you got super lucky on the roll. So basically, Divine Orb, Exalted Orbs, and Annulment Orbs are all part of the T1 currency that it gets converted into. So every time you drop a unique from that god, you will either get a Divine, Exalted, or Annulment. So sometimes when you see someone get like unlucky and they get a bunch of Exalts, they did get unlucky. Those Exalted Orbs or Annulment Orbs could all have been Divines. Now, Winged Reliquary Scarab is really, really good. So this gives you 250% more unique items found in the area. And that is an insane amount of unique items. So if you use these scarabs, and in this map, the mapping setup I was running was Winged Reliquary, Winged Divination, Winged Abyss, and Polished Legion. So I'm actually maximizing the amount of uniques I can possibly find with the scarab. And the scarab is pretty underused. Now, obviously, outside of the scarabs, you also want to have high quant and rarity on your map and your gear. So that's where Magic Find kind of comes into play. So the higher the map quantity and rarity means the mob will have a higher chance to drop more unique items that will eventually get converted, not corrupted. I'm an idiot. So as you can see here, this is the map that I was running. It has 286% quant and 213% increased rarity. And that's because I kind of got lucky with the altars. So that's why boss rushing strategy is pretty important. So what do people mean by a boss rushing strategy? Is that you run to the boss of the map so that you get rid of the altars that deal with the map boss, and the altars will only be Eldritch minions and player altars. So player altars has two things that are really, really good for God Touch, which is quantity and rarity altars, which boost the quantity and rarity of the map. and that's why the quant and rarity of this map is so high. And then there's also currency duplication altars. So currency duplication altars gives you around a 20% chance to duplicate the currency, or 24% chance. So that means when you look at the screenshot right here, you can say on average, if you got an extra currency duplication altar, you would get like 1.24 times more loot. Now, that's why Defiled Cathedral and Crimson Temple, if you do those maps in your Deli Orb farming or Deli Mirror farming, you should run to the boss, kill the boss, and then clear the rest of the map, and then do the abysses. The abysses are actually where you find most of the gods. So that's how you actually should do the map. I'll probably make a video of a sample map clear where I'll commentate about what I'm doing and my thought process behind it. And in the end, Magic Find does matter on your gear, because all of this gets scaled with item rarity and quantity on your gear, making Magic Find extremely profitable. Like if you warp Magic Find in this scenario, I would probably expect it to be like 10 divines. However, as you can see here, a lot of people have gotten a lot of Deli Orbs or Divine Orbs with no Magic Find. I've had people in my chat say that they've got 8 to 10 Divine Orbs just by doing some random Deli Mirror strategy and putting a Reliquary Scarab, because I told them about the strat and they thought it was good. And it shows you don't really need Magic Find to get these huge Divine Orb explosions. You just need to set up your map properly and get lucky with the altars on the map. Now, this brings up to my next point, which is the problem with Droughtbringer. So Droughtbringer turns half the items into flask into flask whenever you meet a god touch, and it doesn't override it. So if you look at over here, what Droughtbringer says is drop items are converted to utility flasks. And you can see here where rarity affects it, because if you will notice that you'll get a lot of unique sulfur flasks and a lot of under unique flasks. So the problem with this is once the item is converted to utility flasks, they can't also get converted to currency. So for instance, if you get a unique flask, the unique flask doesn't get converted into a T1 currency. And that's the reason why if you ever see Droughtbringer on your mob with the God Touch, you can pretty much say that it's going to be kind of a brick and the stats are going to be really bad, or the loot is going to be really bad. So you can see here, someone made a Reddit post about Droughtbringer plus Lunar's Touch conversion order. So you can see here, some of the items got converted to flasks, and then there's a couple items that got converted to currency. And this guy got kind of lucky in the end that he actually ended up with a Divine Orb, and he actually got 2 Annulment Orbs in the screenshot. So I think like if they want to make the loot feel more consistent for this, they should make it so that the God Touch overrides everything, and the Droughtbringer flask can actually get converted. So everything that gets converted can also get converted again by the God Touched. But right now, that's just not the case with what is going on. So now you might be wondering, what is the upper limit of what can happen in solo play? And I do think that 24, 30 divines has been the most that I've personally seen this league. Someone in Standard did tell me they actually got a 38 Divine Orb explosion, which is actually just nuts, right? So there is a difference between 3 and 4 mods. So a lot of people might sometimes get a 3 modded God Touch, which is actually really, really bad. Because in the patch notes, they say that they increased the item rarity for monsters with 2 Arch Nemesis modifiers and substantially increased the item rarity for monsters with 3 and 4 Arch Nemesis modifiers. So basically, they're saying with the item drop conversion system, this results in a lot more powerful drops of hitting certain combination of modifiers. So each Arch Nemesis modifier pretty much adds a certain amount of baseline of item rarity and quant. So having a 4 modded Arch Nemesis mob is going to result in a lot more items dropping than a 3 mod one. So you might be wondering, what is the best combo possible? Well, in my estimation, the best combo possible is mirror image, so your dropped items are duplicated. So if you can see here, originally in the screenshot of 24, if I had got to mirror image on my guy, because if you actually look at the god I was killing, at least like, hey, at least you got. So right here is Lunar's Touch, Soul Eater, Gargantuan, Permafrost. If you actually look at it here, Soul Eater doesn't really do much. So Soul Eater, dropped items are fully linked, so that didn't really matter. But if I've got to mirror image, dropped items are duplicated, this one right here would have already been 48 divines. Now, if you think about it even more, if you got Opulent, which is one of the rare Arch Nemesis mods, it gives you 10,000% increased quantity of items dropped and 20,000 increased rarity of items dropped. So theoretically, you could get 100 plus 200 divines if this actually works the way I think it does. Now, no one has really posted anything about this because this is pretty much like trying to hit a lotto. And there are a lot of Arch Nemesis mods, and this is probably weighted very, very, very lowly. as Opulent is extremely rare. But if you do one day get a Mirror Image, Solar's Touch, or Lunar's Touch, or Shakira Touch, and Opulent, then you are probably going to be witnessing Divines fall out of the sky from Chris's hands. Now, overall, what does this mean for you? You can still get a very large amount of loot explosion without crazy amounts of magic find, as long as you juice up your maps enough and you use a Reliquary Scarab. I think the Reliquary Scarab can make up for a lot of magic find. Now, I don't know how much a Reliquary Scarab is, so maybe if you just toss in a polished or gilded Reliquary Scarab for your map, then that might be pretty good. Now, in terms of the unique drop rates, I've ran Winged Reliquary Scarab in probably around like 50 maps total, and I found a total of like 2 or 3 tier 1 uniques, and I've never seen a tier 0 unique this patch. I think a Squire, Mageblood, Headhunter drop rate is literally nerfed to the ground, but I have found like a Doriani's prototype, and I found Aegis Aurora. Now, as I said, it is probably possible for a solo player to get 100 plus Divines if they hit the perfect mob combo with the right altars. And I think that this could potentially happen. It'll be interesting to see if anyone posts it on Reddit before GGG eventually nerfs the loot goblins in 3.20. And God Touch should definitely override Droughtbringer, but Fractured Flasks are pretty cool. Maybe this will make Mageblood Flasks a lot more affordable in the future. But in terms of what I think about the loot goblin, I think it is not a terrible concept, but it's just designed very poorly and not tested thoroughly. I do think that the variance shouldn't be this high, but it is kind of fun to get the right combination in order to get the amount of payout that you get. Now, if you think about it, in my experience, loot goblins are not that rare, or God Touch aren't that rare if you actually juice up the map properly. I think in my estimation, you probably get a God Touch every 2 to 3 maps with this juicing method, which I will go over later. But within the 2 to 3 maps, you also have to get the right god, right? So if you get a god, then you also have to get the right god. It's probably a good god 1 in every 5 to 6 maps. But once you get to 5 to 6 maps, you can get a huge payout. The payout should be around 10 Divines minimum, or 5 to 6, depending on how much magic find you have on your guy. But in the end, it's not that RNG, but the payout still feels really good once you do hit the right amount of mods. But hopefully this has helped you out in learning when to call in a magic find color and why your God Touch is so bad and how you can optimize it for yourself in the future. And there's one word I have, which is Reliquary Scarabs. But thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you find more Exalted Orbs, Magebloods, and Divines and God Touch to me, and see you next time. Bye!